I'm Allie with Potomac Beads. Join me in creating these brick stitch style Bohemian earrings. There's a nice little floral in the middle that you can change up to a bigger bead, change the design, and really have fun learning brick stitch around a form as well as between beads if you don't have a form. Remember, if you do need any supplies, go ahead and look below in the description of the video to shop with us online at PotomacBeads.com as well as PotomacBeads.eu. Remember also, you can use different materials. So if you want to, watch this video in full, and I usually give alternatives and ideas if you do want to switch it up. Gather up your materials as well as a nice working surface like a bead on it board, and we'll get started. To begin our Bohemian earrings, I have the 1.5 by 2 millimeter Potomac Crystal Rondelles in the light coral red, as well as your 11O seed beads in those Duracoat galvanized gold, and then our 15 O's here in that matte sea opal. The 6 millimeter pearl in the middle is going to be the Cocoa Shiny, and I'm starting with my form of my teardrop here in brass. What I'm going to do first is that interior row there of my green beads. I have 0.006 wildfire thread on a size 12 needle, and I'm going to tie it to the form. Give a nice tight knot right at the top, once and twice. Once it's tied to the form, then we're going to start with our brick stitch. Now obviously it's easier to brick stitch along the outer row rather than the inner, having to go through. I'm going to start along the outer, and then I'm just going to take my fingers and flip it towards the interior. When starting out with brick stitch, I want you to add 2 beads at the first go round. We're then going to be adding 1 bead at a time, and we're going to be adding a total of 21 beads for this row. Go through your form, letting the bead sit to the top of the drop, and then you're going to sew back through bead number 2 toward bead number 1, which is going to force bead number 2 to sit up and down straight, so that the hole is going to be perpendicular to the form itself. From here, we're going to repeat this. Bead goes on, let it drop down on your form, go through the form with your needle and thread, hold your bead at the top, and then sew back through the bead toward the previous bead, which is going to once again get that bead to sit end on end along the form. I'm going to do this for about 10-15 passes, and then what I was saying is we're going to flip that to the interior of the piece. It's easier to work towards the exterior, so I'm going to add some more beads. Again, adding 1 bead at a time, letting it fall down next to the form, holding it to the top of the form there, taking my needle and thread through the form, and then back through that bead that I just added toward the previous bead number 3. When I take that back through there, this bead is going to sit so that the hole is facing up. Again, I'm going to continue this for a total of 21 beads. However, after 15 beads, I'm going to stop, or 12 beads, and I'm going to turn it in toward the interior. So that way, as I go towards the exterior curve, it's not curving out, it's curving in toward the form. Now that I have 12 beads on my form, like I said, what I'm going to do is just simply take my fingers and twist it toward the interior, pushing it up toward the top of the piece, and then making sure as I pull from now on, I'm nice and toward the interior. So I'm now going to put my bead on, let that drop down, go over the form and underneath, and then back through that bead. Same idea, you're just going over the form instead of under. Get that nice and tight, pushed up toward the last bead, and then continue on. Again, you're going to want 21 total. That was 13 for me. I have 9 more to add as I get to, 8 more to add as I get to the exterior side here. You can see when I get to the exterior side then, we're going to add in some of our center section and then finish off with our exterior. After you're done with your 21 interior beads, you're going to be coming out of your last 15 O, and we're going to add the center of our flower. To add the center of our flower coming out of that last bead, I want you to add 1 of your crystals, 1 of your 11O seed beads, your 6 millimeter pearl, and then reverse 11 crystal. From here, I'm going to count back 11 beads. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And I'm going to sew through bead number 11 and come on out. So you see how that's just going to kind of line up there, right along the bottom. From here, you're going to go back through your form, so underneath the form. And then I'm going to sew back through that same 15-0 bead, the crystal, the 11-0, and the pearl. When you're doing this, you just want to make sure, as your needle and thread comes out through the pearl, that your thread and needle stays nice and tight next to that 15-0 so that way you don't have a lot of thread going on the exterior of your form. Pulling that thread there, you're just going to pull slowly, making sure that it stays between those two beads there. From here, what I want you to do is I want you to add a total of 7 11-0 seed beads to your thread and needle. 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. That needle and thread then we're going to take through the pearl. We're exiting one side, we add the 7 beads. We're going to go into the other side of the pearl and wrap the seed beads around the pearl. Exit through the pearl, not through the seed bead. And we're going to do the same thing one more time. So you see how you just put that simple little loop towards the bottom? We're going to do another loop at the top. So those 7 seed beads get added again. And once again, back through the pearl, coming out one side into the other to circle the beads around the exterior side. From here, now that I have my little flower, and you notice that I'm doing the sides opposite, so one earring hangs one way, one hangs the other. The only thing that's going to be different is when you tie the knots. You want to make sure to tie the knots to opposite sides because basically it looks the same on the other side. From here, we're going to add some of our crystals in a brick stitch fashion. So coming out through your pearl, you're going to go through seed bead number 1 at the top row of 7. Coming out there, I want you to add one of your crystals. Let it drop down. Go underneath the bridge thread between 1 and 2. You'll see a tiny bit of thread on the exterior, but we're not worrying about it. And then you're going to go back up through the crystal, just like regular brick stitch. So that line of seed beads is now going to be our arching edge of our brick stitch. Another bead gets added. You go between beads 2 and 3. So underneath that bridge thread. Once you're underneath the bridge thread, pull that bead close down. Make sure you stay as you go back through that crystal. Make sure you're staying between the same beads. So I'm going to move that little loop over that wants to create, making sure that I'm staying between beads 2 and 3. Give a nice tight pull, and that puts that bead toward the top. Again, add another crystal, go through the next beads, beads number 3 and 4, pinch that down there, take your thread and needle back through your crystal. Once you know you're in the right spot, pull tight to create that crystal arch. So you can see how those beads are going right along the top of that seed bead row. I'm going to continue in adding the crystals in between every single bead here on that exterior row. So just keep adding in between all of those beads. So you have 7 beads, we're going to be adding 6 crystals. Again, just when you come back here to do your final pull, you want to make sure that you're between the beads that you were intending. And then give it the pull. So you can see how that row of crystals is going toward the top of the piece. Once you're done adding your 6th crystal here, we're going to take our thread and needle and go back through that crystal that's before the pearl. That's going to close up this brick stitch, and connect crystal number 6 back to the one that's on the side of the pearl. At the same time, go ahead back through the pearl, the 11-0, out toward the other side, and we're going to want to exit to complete that circle of our brick stitch and make our petals look nice and in a line. Go back through your 11-0 seed bead after your pearl, as well as your crystal. Once you're through your crystal, you're going to line it up and catch on to the bead that was number 1, going down through that first crystal that we added between our 11-0 seed beads. This links those together and forms kind of that seamless petal look. After going through, I want you to go down through your 11-0 seed bead. That's right underneath that one, toward the pearl. So you're coming out bead number 1 from your stitch. This creates that little floral look right on the base or the side of the earring as you kind of pull up and make sure your beads are going the way that you want them to. And now what we're going to do is we're going to decorate the exterior. So we're already on this side, so we're going to start with this side. I'm coming out bead number 1 right there. I'm just going to switch my thread and needle and go back out through my bead after my pearl, my first crystal there, and out through my 15. Now sometimes it's a little challenging to take your needle out from that 15 because its hole is lined up with your form. Just a little bit of wiggling will get that through, and then out to the exterior side. From here, I'm doing an off pattern basically. I have 3 of my 11-0 seed beads that I'm going to brick stitch, and then I do a series here of my crystals, 8 crystals, and then finish up the top with 11-0 seed beads. When you're on the outside here, go ahead and add 1 and 2 11-0 seed beads. Let them fall down next to your form, and I'm going to go around the form. Now naturally you're going to kind of sneak in between your beads here. Just make sure that the thread stays next to the form. Go ahead and back up through bead number 2 toward bead number 1 and finish off your brick stitch. Continuing on, again I have 3 golds that I start with. And you can change this pattern. You can add a 15 at the top between. I went back and forth a lot with how I was going to get this to look. I made a couple different models, and then I went with simple was the key. From here then I'm going to switch back to my 1.5 by 2 millimeter crystals, getting again 8 of those in, and then following up with my 11-0 gold seed beads the whole way to the top of the piece, to the top of the point on the other side. Once you're done your 3 seed beads and then your 8 crystals and then your 9 seed beads again, you're going to be at the top here of the piece. I want you to add 1 crystal, and I'm coming out, remember, just the top there, just like as if I was doing brick stitch. That's going to sit toward the top of the piece. I'm going to add my wire guard going through the side, around the loop, and then I'm also going to go back through that final crystal. As I come back through that final crystal, I'm going to push that up toward the top, making sure I don't have a lot of extra thread showing. Take your thread and needle then through the form, almost as if it was a brick stitch, and then pull your needle and thread back through the crystal one more time. What that's going to do is bring that crystal up toward the top so that it's the last thing before the ear wire. From here, we're going to reinforce our thread around the ear wire, going up through that wire guard one more time, down through the opposite side, down through the crystal as well, and then again figure out what is your back and what is your front. And you're going to take that thread end here from your 15-0s and simply tie the 2 threads together. So this one here is my front. I'm going to push that thread edge to the back to finish off these Bohemian style earrings. The thread ends are at the back now. Take your hands, just do a simple little knot, right over left, left over right, once and twice, and then go in with your thread zap or your thread burner and simply burn down the thread ends. Because the thread is green and the beads that it's right next to are green as well, I'm not worrying about separating the thread because again, this is going to be towards the back of the piece. Making sure that the earrings are mirror images of one another then, I'll grab my ear wire, open it up a little bit, attach my wire guard onto it, and wear my lovely Bohemian earrings. As always, thanks so much in joining me for the creation of these Bohemian earrings. It's a really great idea to practice your brick stitch versus in a form as well as around a bead. Remember, there are tons of different materials that you can choose to use in this design as well as adapt it to different size and shape forms. If you do want to check out our entire selection of forms, go ahead and look at the links below to shop with us online. Remember, you can also post your photos of your Bohemian earrings in our Facebook group for beading and jewelry making. You can also give your feedback here on the video. Let us know if you have any questions, if you have ideas, or if you have tried them out and made any changes, you can include that in the comments. That way you help out the beading community that's watching this video. If you haven't yet already, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss anything from us here at Potomac Beads. Have fun creating these Bohemian earrings and learning and practicing your brick stitch.